we will move into the awards.
Commissioners, executive directors, Burhans, Palmer, Grohall, staff, and visitors. It brings me great pleasure to be here to present the Conservation Law Enforcement Chiefs Association Officer of the Year Award for 2016. This annual award is given to recognize officers who have made significant contributions to the agency's law enforcement mission. Each year, our 6 regional directors nominate a standing wildlife conservation officer from their respective regions to be considered for this prestigious award. I am pleased to announce that this year's winner is WCO Jake Alexak from Crawford County in the agency's Northwest region. A WCO for just 6 years, Officer Alexak has become a well-rounded, highly effective district officer who is respected by his peers and supervisory staff alike. His district encompasses approximately 350 square miles and includes 12,000 acres of state game lands, 22,000 acres of privately owned lands enrolled in the Hunter Access Program, and the heavily hunted Pymatuning Wildlife Management Area. In 2016, Officer Alexak prosecuted 117 game law cases while issuing 233 warnings for violation of wildlife code. Serving in an area that is a haven for waterfowl hunting, WCO Alexak frequently organizes enforcement details with other WCOs to curtail waterfowl hunting violations. In addition to his strong law enforcement program, WCO Alexak serves as a defensive tactics instructor, a taser instructor, a member of the agency's woodland tracking team, and a burning team. He also serves as a field training officer when there is a cadet class in session. His contributions to training keep all of our officers safe as they go about their challenging and sometimes dangerous duties. Representing the agency and the badge in a positive manner, both on and off duty, Officer Alexak is truly deserving of this award. Jake.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both.
Next, we have a special presentation. I'd like to call Commissioner Schlemmer to the front.
Good morning. I'm honored this morning to give the first Commissioner Service Award ever given. And the various commissioners throughout the years can continue doing this. This award this year goes to a special friend of mine also, retired Deputy John Kuzbal from the Southwest, District 2651. What he did started 20 years ago, and he was interested in the youth and the families getting together in the outdoors. And he started Family Field Days 20 years ago. And he got folks from all over the country to participate. And 10 years ago, he moved his operation to the Keystone State Park under DCNR in Westmoreland County. And since that time, DCNR has been keeping track of the average amount of people who attend. Average 5,000 people come. And of that 5,000, around 300 youth come annually. And I just think this has been a great job. I'd like to read one of his brochures that I found. I think this is 20th brochure, if I may read it to you. Keystone State Park, with the support of Westmoreland County Sportsman's League, proudly present a free family event, Youth and Family Outdoors Show, Sunday, May the 5th. By the way, this goes on every year during May. Keystone State Park Pavilion. Exhibitors include PA Fish and Boat Commission, PA Game Commission, DCNR, Army Corps of Engineers, NRA, Ducks Unlimited, National Wild Turkey Federation, Boy Scouts of America, various dog groups, including bird dogs, coon dogs, and even sled dogs, a fly tying demo, a birding group, local sportsmen's clubs, and many other nonprofit recreational groups. Plus, they had a BB gun shoot that year. Everyone welcome, free admission, exhibits, free food, free fun. John, come on up. On behalf of the Pennsylvania Game Commission, thank you for your service, my friend. Okay? I'm going to get a picture taken here with you.
Thanks, guys. This is awesome.
If you want to say something, feel free to.
Uh-oh, look out, they're giving me the mic. I'd like to challenge the rest of the state to do something like this. It's pretty easy. Start small, let it grow. My only thing is make sure you have a strong group behind you. My wife, my brother, my daughters, even my granddaughters are a big part of this event. We look forward to it every year. The smiling faces of the kids, hey, you'll love it. DCNR works great with me, but also I want to mention Bob Schlemmer. When I finished training school up here, back in 92, whatever year it was, I come out of school, ball of fire, got back into the district. I remember Bob looking at me and saying, hey, rookie, slow down, we'll show you how it's done. Bob, you must have been a good teacher.
Next on our agenda, we'd like to recognize Pennsylvania Game Commission employees who have been with us for 25 years. I'd just like to say what an amazing team of employees the Pennsylvania Game Commission is lucky to have. Everything you see that goes on, from our enforcement officers out there in the field to our game lands habitat management crews out there changing habitat on our game lands, to the folks you don't usually see, our biologists who are doing survey and analysis to set our seasons in bags, to our licensing individuals who are up there in these little offices making sure nothing breaks and everything gets their licenses. Everything gets done because of the amazing staff this agency has. And I'll tell you what, we are all blessed to have the quality of employees that we have. So now we'd like to recognize these employees for their 25 years of service. The first is somebody we all know as we listen to his melodic renditions of our annual agenda, Mr. Brad Bechtel. His CDs will be on sale starting tomorrow from 8 to 5. You want to do a group one? Okay. Next, we'd like to recognize Walter Bowden. Mr. Roger Brown. Mr. Jacob Dingle III. Thank you. Timothy Esterly. Thank you, sir. Charles Fields. Thank you, sir. Timothy France. Terry Heckelroad. John Keller. Thank you, John. First one to drop his pen. Patricia Monk. Thank you. Wendy Palmer. Rich's better half. Oh, I'm gonna mess this one up. I did all right. Dennis Sidisi. Well, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners and the staff, thank you for everything you've done for this agency and what you do every single day. We're grateful for what you've done and what you continue to do. We'll go outside for the photo? Yeah, we'll go outside for the photo. And next on the agenda, we have one staff.
All right. My name is Bruce Metz. I'm the Region Director for the Southeast Region. We're giving you a region update on two different projects today. A lot of going on in the Southeast, but we picked two to highlight. The first one's a habitat project. It's been going on for probably well over a decade, and it's got its roots deeper than that. Certainly Dave Mitchell, our land management supervisor in the region, will explain that, but it's a tremendous project. I mean, a lot of times you do habitat work, and you know you created some great habitat, but the results sometimes aren't dramatic. As you see with Dave's present day here on Game Lands 168, the Palmerton Superfund site, you're going to see, I mean, it is dramatic of what he's done as an agency. As he's been our representative on the trustee council, and he's been our guy on the ground there, and he's moved it forward. And some of the work that's got accomplished on Game Lands 168 is not short of amazing. So he will get into that. And then the second project will be an update on things that are going on at Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area. Some things have changed down there with the assignment of the land management duties for York County going to the South Central and the retirement of Jim Binder within the region. We downsized from 5 land managers down to 4. But we still needed somebody to manage the visitor center and manage the control hunts down at Middle Creek and the surrounding educational areas, the trails, and to manage that. So we hired Lauren Fenstemacher as our wildlife education specialist down there. She's now responsible for those duties, and we've had some real great things going on down there, so we wanted to give you an update of some of the changes and some of the things that we're doing. So with that, I will turn it over to Dave and get started.
That's not the presentation. Where's the next slide?
Just hit the,
Yeah, I know, but it'll be okay.
sorry.
Superfund site. And this is a project that I've been privileged to be a part of probably for the last 15 years. And one of the things that you very rarely get to do is to see something go from really poor quality habitat to great habitat overnight. And this was one of those examples where we were able to do that. A little bit of the history of Palmerton. Palmerton was created essentially as a zinc smelting site. New Jersey Zinc picked that location because they were able to get their zinc ore there from New Jersey, and they were able to get coal there from the coal regions of northeastern Pennsylvania. It was formed right at the Lehigh Gap in the mountain. And on the left side of the picture there, you can see the ridge. That's the Blue Mountain. And you can see those unregulated emissions coming out of the west plant and out of the east plant. Unfortunately, after 100 years, this is what we were left with. All of the lead, cadmium, and zinc that was deposited on the mountain totally killed everything. Not only did it kill the vegetation, but it also killed everything right down to the mycorrhizal fungi. That's why those trees are still standing there. There was nothing there to even break them down. Over time, wind, rain caused erosion. The soil left, and we were left with something that looked like surface of the moon. So EPA became involved. It became a Superfund site in 1984. As part of the settlement there, they tried to address the natural resources. They didn't do it to the satisfaction of the Fish and Wildlife Service or the Game Commission. So we ended up suing them in a NERDA case. And it was the Game Commission, Fish Commission, DEP, DCNR, the Fish and Wildlife follow those steps. CBS suddenly becomes responsible for the damages that occurred up there. The assessment area was game lands 217 and 168 on either side of the Lehigh Gap. And it also involved the Appalachian Trail. That's that brown section that you can see there. So what we ended up doing was, as part of our case, for the Game Commission, it was pretty simple. We looked at 100 days lost and timber value lost. For the other trust agencies, we did some soil sampling and some other studies as well. The nice thing about that was timber value was something that we felt fairly strongly about that we could prove our case with. We also ended up finding a fairly large piece of property. That section there to the right is a tract called Kings Manor. It was around 1,200 acres. And when we were negotiating with them as part of a settlement, so we didn't need to go to court, we flipped that out there and told them that if we received that property, that would be, we would be made whole for the Game Commission. So they ended up accepting that. So we ended up with the Kings Manor property. That was around $6.9 million. Then, because we were part of that trust council, U.S. Fish and Wildlife had a fairly large claim for migratory bird damages. We ended up adding Alpine property, which is that property immediately to the left on the west side there at Kings Manor. And we also added the Nothstein property. In total, the Game Commission came away with 1,791 acres with a land value of just over $11 million. So it was not an easy task to get there. It took a lot of work. We did a lot of different studies. The Bureau of Wildlife Habitat Management helped us immensely. And the other one was what was lost because of the damages. So what was lost were those 100 days and the timber value. They replaced them by buying that land for us. But they still needed to fix the exact problem, which was the denuded mountaintop. So through a series of tests, we determined that we could actually apply seed, lime, and fertilizer out of a crop duster airplane. So if you look on this map, those areas in orange were slopes greater than 5%, and they were seeded in 2008. And this here's a little bit jumbled, but essentially we ended up putting down almost 50 pounds of seed per acre. It was largely warm season grasses as well as pitch pine. And we put a ton of lime seed or put a ton of lime, and I think it was 160 pounds of fertilizer per acre. Fertilizer, you could see the lime pellets, and if you looked close enough, you could actually find some of the seed laying there on the rocks. And you think, well, that couldn't have worked. Well, that's 2 years later. We ended up with those small pine seedlings growing, and we had a really healthy stand of native grasses. That took care of the steep slopes, but we had the flat areas on top that we wanted to do something. The goal was to get back to that oak forest that was there before the area was denuded. So the idea of using resource islands. How do you get oaks there if you don't have a seed source? So we identified 4 areas that we were going to have CBS intensively manage, and we called those resource islands. We ended up if you look at all those individual dots, this here is Resource Island 1. There's like over 1,500 dots there. Those are individual trees. We're going to go into a little bit about what they did there, but every tree and every tree gets individual care. The trees we planted, we looked at 90 different oaks per acre. We ended up, thanks to the American Chestnut Foundation, we put down almost 60 American chestnuts per acre. And then we put black gum chokecherry and staghorn sumac, along with Virginia pine seed and blackberry seed. So this is what we were working with. This is the top of the mountain, completely denuded of vegetation, but plate rock. It kind of looked like the surface of the moon. We had a company come in. They ended up setting posts to put up a deer exclusionary fence. They stretched that fence. And the next spring, that's what it looked like. If you look in the back, you can see those small tree tubes sticking up. Those are all the American chestnuts because we gave them additional protection so they wouldn't be girdled by voles or rabbits inside the fence. To plant those holes, this here is on a test site on a different game lands, but they ended up bringing in a mini excavator with an auger on the end of it. They ended up drilling holes. And then every hole was filled with amendment. It was peat, topsoil, and vermiculite. And when they were done, they had that little tiny area there that had high-quality soil in it. They planted seedlings, and we also put in American chestnut. So if you look back at that aerial seeding that occurred in 2008, 9 years later, that's what it looks like. So it went from plate rock to a lot of pitch pine with a little bit of grass in the understory. And you can see those trees are 10 to 15 feet tall. The resource islands in 2000 look like this. We have, one of the concerns we have is fire on top of the mountain there because we don't want it to damage our newly planted seedlings. So we have a bit of a moat area around the outside of the island. We put up signage so people understand what's going on. We explain that the different trees that are planted in there, that it's part of a remedial activity based on the Palmerton Superfund site. We ask them to call us if there's any deer or bear located inside, and we tell them that the fences will come down as soon as we get our desired results. The seedlings in those resource islands, this here you can see every seedling is hand weeded. If they die, they're replanted. You can see that's RO 1613. That stands for red oak number 1613 that was planted this spring. And our American chestnuts are doing very well. You can see this one here is probably 8 feet tall. And the growth inside those resource islands is nothing short amazing. In the foreground, you can see the different seedlings that are planted. In the background, that's the Virginia pine seed that's coming up. And if I can leave you with one thing when we're talking about this, well, I'd like to leave you with two things. One, aside from staff time, which was mainly me, none of this cost us anything. CBS paid for the consultants to come up. They paid for the fences that were put up. They paid for all the seedlings. They were writing checks to the American Chestnut Foundation for $150,000 a pop for those nuts, which were $50 a piece. The B3, F3s, I think, were $150 a piece. So they obviously wanted to take really good care of them, hence the fencing and the individual care. So all this was done. I don't know what the total came to, but to us. So that there is what the mountain looked like in 2010. And if you look in the back, you can see that little dip in the ridge behind it. And this was about a week and a half ago. I went back to the same spot, took the picture. You can see that little tiny drop, and that's the only place that I could see it. And that's the pitch pine and the area inside the resource island. So in less than a decade, we went from plate rock to a young forest teeming with wildlife. And like I said, it's one of the things that I'm really proud of, and I was really glad that I was able to be a part of it. Does anybody have any questions?
How long was it till you saw wildlife coming back into that area?
It happened almost immediately. Once the warm season grasses and the young trees started growing, we started to see small mammals coming back. For a short time, it was an area that was completely honed in on by American kestrels. There were kestrels up there hunting all over the place. Those small mammals, there's a lot of rattlesnakes that are there now. Then once the vegetation got 2 to 3 feet high, you started seeing the deer. And believe it or not, they had to take small fencing and put it around the bottom of the resource islands, because one of the problems they had were the rabbits came in and ate all the oak seedlings. So they had to exclude the rabbits from the islands. And like I said, 1,000 acres of early successional habitat. So it's a really good thing. Yes.
So have you had to put additional soil amendments in place? I mean, with these heavy metals, sometimes when you lime, that affects how available they are to the plants. So you did it once, you hit it really hard with lime, and then have you had to do anything since? Or?
They haven't. It's one of the things that they're considering. We may have to do another aerial application of lime. This went from, it started out with wild rye, then it went to more of the blue stem and switchgrass, and now it seems like deer tongue is becoming the more predominant species. Some of the things that they're thinking is it could be because some of those amendments have been used up. So they haven't decided yet, but there is the possibility that we may have to do another application. The other thing that I should tell you is the species that we picked, the reason that we picked them is they did not show the ability to recycle the metals. Aspen and bur, probably because they're early successional species, they do uptake the metals, and then when their leaves fall, it ends up dropping onto the top of the ground again. So the oaks, the chestnuts, the cherry, they did not transport the metals, so those are the reasons that we picked those species. Okay, thank you.
As Bruce recently introduced me, my name is Lauren Fenstermacher. For those of you who have not met me, I am one of the managers at Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area, and my duties there are, thank you, maintaining the visitor center operations, overseeing the controlled hunts that we have, and any of the biological work that we do at Middle Creek. This presentation is just a brief look at the updates and additions that we have done within the last year while I've been there. And the line that is running through Middle Creek currently. These blinds are stainless steel blinds, and we received 20 of them to replace our old wooden pit blinds. As you can see, they're pretty large. That's what they look like when they're not in the ground. This is the inside of the blinds. They're much more spacious than our other blinds and provide a lot more comfort for our hunters. And just to give a shout out to our food and cover crew, they did an excellent job getting these blinds in with the short amount of time that we had between August and the November beginning of our hunting season. As you can see, it was no small task to complete, and especially with 20 blinds of this size. Once they're completely filled in, this is what they look like. They're extremely low profile. And each of those doors, if you can see here and here, are separate doors slide off in order to get into the blind. When you're inside the blind, there are actually panels that will sit on top of the opening to help conceal the hunters. When they have a shot opportunity, they just take those panels, throw the panels behind them, and have a shot opportunity from there. We also were able to use these blinds as new duck blinds as well. The pro of this is that they are completely watertight, so we can get them a lot closer to water, so the hunters have a better shot opportunity and a much shot as well. Just another view of our duck blind there. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but this is a map portraying the changes in movement, or the movements of the goose blinds that we did. We went out one day with our foreman and took a look at the historical hunter success data at Middle Creek, and based on each blind success, we determined if we kept them in the same location or if we moved them to a certain spot that would help with the success of that blind. Some of the blinds were actually removed and not replaced, just because we felt that they were in a poor location for hunting. Another addition we had to our controlled hunts was an inaugural archery hunt that we had this past fall. This was used to take place of the late season flintlock hunt that usually yielded poor results. For the first year, we had a pretty good pool of applicants. We had 892 applicants apply. 48 of those applicants were drawn to hunt. Each group of hunters, which is a number of 16 hunters for each week, came into the controlled area of Middle Creek, and they were broken into 5 zones. Hunters were randomly selected for a buck tag so they could harvest a buck. They had 1 day of scouting prior to their hunt, and we had a 33% success rate for our first year. 15 out of 46 hunters were successful. Only 46 out of 48 hunters actually came to Middle Creek to hunt. 8 females were harvested, or does, 7 buck, and 5 adult buck. This is a picture of one of our successful hunters here that took a buck out of the first week at Middle Creek. This is just the Middle Creek and the 5 zones that we broke it out into. Each zone, we determined the number of hunters for each zone based on the number of acres of woods. So the first zone there, which it's hard to see, was 92 acres of woods, so we allowed 4 hunters in that area. 2 of those hunters were allowed to harvest buck, whereas the second zone was only 33 acres of woods, and only 2 hunters were allowed in that zone, with 1 hunter allowed to take a buck. Again, we used the same 5 zones that we used for our controlled archery hunt, 1 trapper per zone, and these were the overall results. While they were not extremely high numbers, I think that it was a good start to an opportunity to help decrease the nest predation that we have at Middle Creek. We are trying to increase our goose numbers there right now. So I think it's a great opportunity to provide additional opportunities for trappers, but also meet our goals. Next, I'm going to go into the visitor center updates that we have inside. We started recycling at Middle Creek, and we also are adding bird-safe glass covers called Kaleidoscapes. So when you come to Middle Creek in the next few months and you go through the double doors, this is what it'll look like. It'll have the hours on the right-hand side there. Basically what it does is it acts as a solid surface for birds, so they don't see it as a continuation of space. You can see out, can't see in. This probably was, I believe Cheryl Truella covered this on a previous commission meeting about the updates of the exhibits at the Middle Creek Visitor Center, but just as a reminder of all the work that we've done there, these are the original exhibits that were at the Visitor Center and what they look like now. We have upgraded to very interactive displays, and speaking from experience of seeing the kids that are in there, they really like them, and they're pretty hard. So we've had to increase some usage for that. We've had to update some of them to make them more kid-proof, but overall they're really seem to be enjoying them. Another thing that we've done at the Visitor Center is revamped our volunteer program. We now have volunteer programs for gardens, for our pollinator gardens, trail maintenance, and our blue box monitor. The trail maintenance people I oversee them in the gardens, and they have been working extremely hard to make the Middle Creek Visitor Center and the trails more user-friendly and attractive. We've also had multiple Eagle Scout projects come through the Visitor Center for trail upgrades, and we've also had some biological diversity with the addition of kestrel boxes at Middle Creek. We've also some outdoor education around the Visitor Center and on the tour road. We are looking at putting educational waysides up outside of the Visitor Center and along the tour road so people can have more information as they're coming through. The waysides are basically educational signs that will cover Middle Creek's story, detailing the background of Middle Creek, who the Game Commission is and why we manage it, snow goose migration, eagles and ospreys, prescribed fire, pollinator habitat, and then the American kestrel boxes that you see around the area. Also adding some road signs to the tour road to help people understand that they need to drive slow through the tour road and watch for wildlife. This is an example of one of the waysides that we're having for ospreys at Middle Creek. You can see it has some detailed information about their life history, why they're a wildlife recovery success story, and it talks a little bit about the platform that we installed at Middle Creek. Some more updates to the center. We have now entered the new age of having a credit card machine there, so we can better serve our guests that come in. We're upgrading our fire and security system, which were the originals that were installed with the building. We are getting electric gates on the tour road to help cut down on vandalism and help with other biological migrations. And we have a brand new flagpole there as well. Some of the habitat updates that we have at Middle Creek, we've done some pollinator along the roadside edges to increase our pollinator value there, and we've had 36 acres of prescribed early successional habitat burnt this year. Our food and cover crew has done a really good job of trying to create more goose connectivity for the goose pastures, so they've removed some willows along the main lake to provide them access right into the goose pastures for better feeding areas. We've also installed an osprey platform at Middle Creek. With the help of that Eagle Scout project that I mentioned before, we have installed 10 American kestrel boxes, 14 prothonotary warbler boxes, and both of those species are listed on our wildlife action plan. And we have started to add breeding bird surveys as a way of monitoring our habitat with the different burns and everything that we do at Middle Creek. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
So last year, we had worked on a disabled veterans hunt for waterfowl, and only Pontotonin could do it because you have these pit blinds.
Right, right.
Have you got any other blinds, or is there a handicap accessible version of these pit blinds that we could install to meet ADA and other things?
Sure. We do have a handicap blind at Middle Creek. It is only one, but they can drive basically right to it. And that was installed previous to me getting to Middle Creek. In terms of making the current blinds handicap accessible, it would be pretty difficult because it's such a steep descent into the pit blind. But we have been looking at other handicap opportunities with multiple hunts at Middle Creek, but we currently have one accessible blind.
Okay, thank you.
So we hear a lot about what's going on in Middle Creek, and
Hopefully good things.
I for one would like to see it in person. So I'm hoping maybe if we're up to it and we can get the staff to make it happen, maybe we can have a working group meeting session down at Middle Creek, and we can spend some time and you can show us around and
Absolutely.
and see what's going on down there.
Yep, we have the auditorium. That's perfect if you guys want to come down and utilize it, but I think it'd be very beneficial for all you guys to see all the changes that are happening down there. It's not, as you can see, it's not just one area. It's kind of reaching to every area, whether it's education, habitat, biology, you name it, and events have increased in popularity as well. So it's definitely beneficial to come down and see all the different changes that we have.
All right, get the mints ready because we're coming.
Okay.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to just touch on a few things to wrap it up. Basically with Dave's project and Palmerton, obviously the results are dramatic. And the one thing I've been involved, I had Dave's position prior before becoming region director, worked on a number of Superfund sites. And the one thing with this one, CBS has really been a very good partner. I've worked with a lot of these, and it hasn't been that level of cooperation work with them. So I just wanted to let everybody know they've been a willing partner and coming along and been extremely helpful in getting to these things. I mean, you know, a lot of times it's a lot more acrimonious, but this has been a very good project from and so they've done a very good job. And then Lauren did touch on it. The new displays inside the visitor center, I definitely have to give, a lot of that was done a couple years prior to retired IES Cheryl Truella had a big part in that, and WS Dan Lynch kind of worked to kind of pull that together, and Lauren is now keeping it running. But I just wanted to give them, you know, a thanks for all the work they did pulling that together. They've done a great job. So I want to thank my staff. Like I said, we have a lot of great things going on in the Southeast. So we just wanted to pick, it was tough to pick two to highlight, but we wanted to go over those things, so thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. At this time, we'll break until 1 o'clock for our formal meeting. Thank you. I will bring the meeting of the Commissioners to order, June 26th. Pledge allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
President Hoover.
Here.
Vice President Layton.
Here.
Secretary Daly is here. Commissioner Putnam. Present. Commissioner Slemmer. Present. And Commissioner Clark.
Here.
We're all here.
Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes held March 28th?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion, comment? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll? Call the vote.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
The first item to come before the Commission today comes from the Bureau of Wildlife Protection. It concerns proposing to amend 58 PA Code Sections 141.1, 141.22, and 141.43. In relevant part, the Act of November 21st, 2016 made two significant changes to Section 2308 of the Act relating to unlawful devices and methods. Act 168 eliminated the Commonwealth's historic prohibitions against the use of air guns and semi-automatic rifles for hunting. It is important to note that Act 168 did not authorize the use of semi-automatic handguns and did not eliminate the 2-shell in the shotgun magazine restriction for small game, fur bearers, etc. On March 28, 2017, in an effort to implement Act 168 and expand hunting opportunities in this Commonwealth, the Commission amended several sections of the code relating to definitions, small game seasons, deer, bear, turkey, elk, and fur bearer seasons, to authorize the use of air guns and semi-automatic rifles for small game and fur bearers. Changes became effective on May 13, 2017. The Commission is now proposing a few housekeeping amendments to address concerns not addressed in the original proposal. First, the Commission is proposing to amend Section 141.1 relating to special regulations areas to extend the use of air guns and semi-automatic rifles for small game and fur bearers to the Commonwealth's special regulation areas. While this extension nearly matches the original statewide proposal, it is important to note the existing limitation to ammunition in this section will be carried forward in the special regulations areas in this amendment. The Commission is also proposing to amend Section 141.22 to remove the limiting term centerfire from the manually operated or semi-automatic rifle authorization that was erroneously added in the publication of the original proposal. This correction will return the text to its intended structure. Lastly, the Commission is proposing to amend Sections 141.43, 141.67 to relocate and extend the use of air guns and semi-automatic rimfire rifles 22 caliber or less for dispatching legally trapped fur bearers caught in a trap during the regular or special firearms deer seasons. The text of these changes is shown on pages 2 through 5 of your agenda.
Do I have a motion on the proposed rulemaking?
So moved.
Second. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none. Mr. Secretary, would you call the vote?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion carries.
Next, I turn to an amendment to 58 PA Code, Section 141.18. Each year, the Commission is asked to review the prospective use of certain devices for hunting or trapping purposes that are otherwise prohibited by statute or regulation. As part of the review process, the Commission generally reviews to what degree use of a given device might negatively impact principles of resource conservation, equal opportunity, fair chase, or public safety. The Commission has recently been requested to formally review the use of decoys used to hunt waterfowl, electronically heated scent or lure dispensers, and electronic devices that generate and distribute ozone gas for scent control purposes. The Commission has reviewed these devices and determined that their use will have no or negligible negative impacts to the previously mentioned principles. The Commission is proposing to amend Section 141.18 relating to permitted devices to authorize the use of electronic decoys used to hunt waterfowl, electronic scent or lure dispensers, and electronic devices that generate and distribute ozone gas for scent control purposes. The text of this proposal is shown on pages 6 through 7 of your agenda.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Go ahead.
Mr. President?
Yes, Commissioner Putnam.
Yeah, I would just like to comment, these are proposed regulations. They're in response to comments that we received. Specifically, we received some at the last, several different comments at the last meeting that kind of got this going. We'll be accepting comments until the next meeting. This is not a final approval, so the public still has a chance to comment further on this.
Commissioner Daly.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, is there any way that if this does move forward, as Mr. Putnam has stated, is there a way that we can suggest that people use synthetic lures versus, real urine, just because of that small chance of CWD? Is there a way to do that, Randy, that we can distribute that as a suggestion at least?
I think we could do that through like information, education materials. It doesn't necessarily have to be a part of the regular. We could certainly encourage people to do that, just like we encourage them to wear safety harnesses when they're climbing.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I think the concern, though, Commissioner Daley, was if that's what we want as our intended purpose, then maybe that's something we need to discuss about adding to the regulations. If that's the only thing that's going to hold this up, then I don't think, it's something we can talk about. I don't think it would be an issue, though, to use sensors in heated devices if that was going to be something that's going to hold them back.
It was just a suggestion versus, changing what we've proposed here.
Well, and maybe we can have whoever, wildlife management and wildlife protection get together and just kind of talk about it and see if they can bring a proposal back one way or the other.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Mr. President, I have one more item on this. These proposed regulations allow the electronic decoys for waterfowl. There's a very similar one used for mourning doves, and we probably should have discussion on adding that before the next meeting. I'm sure we'll get some comments on that mourning doves should probably be included with the electronic decoys.
There are commercially available mourning dove decoys that are electronic in nature and are not addressed by this creation. So if it's the wish of the commission, we can look at making that change.
Would the change be to use migratory bird instead of specifics? I see that we do have it for crows.
We would probably, I think we would probably specify doves specifically.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. The motion carries.
The next item before the Commission is also from the Bureau of Wildlife Protection and concerns adopted rulemaking. This is an amendment to 58 PA Code Sections 135.103, 135.104, and 143.42 relating to registration for controlled goose hunting areas and definitions, to require that registered controlled goose hunting areas and antlerless licenses be submitted on a form and in the manner designated by the Commission. These proposed amendments will allow the Commission and public greater access to electronic sources and methods of application. The Commission is also proposing to amend Sections 135.103 and 135.104 relating to restrictions on controlled goose hunting areas to update the parameters for establishing and managing the controlled hunts at the Middle Creek and Pymatuning wildlife areas. These updates allow for greater flexibility, consistency, and clarity in the regulations. The text of these changes are shown on pages 9 through 10 of your agenda.
Motion to accept.
Second. Darling? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
The next item concerns the amendment of 58 PA Code Section 141.15 related to loaded firearms or devices in vehicles to clarify that any air gun with a pellet or bullet ammunition in either the chamber or magazine will be considered loaded for the purposes of 34 PACS Section 250 relating to loaded firearms in vehicles. The text of this amendment is shown on page 12 of your agenda.
Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say no. The motion carries.
And the next item appears to remove 58 PA Code Section 147.687 to establish the continued effectiveness of the deer attractant permit program. This change is shown on page 14 of your agenda.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carries.
And the next item concerns amendments to 58 PA Code, Section 147.106A and 147.111B, relating to non-resident falconers and Arctic peregrine falcon limited take special permit, to expand the limited take of Arctic peregrine falcons, Falco peregrinus tundrius, within this Commonwealth to also include general class and non-resident falconry permit holders. The text of these changes are shown on pages 16 through 17 of your agenda.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by
Aye.
anyone opposed say no. Motion carries.
The next item before the Commission comes from the Bureau of Wildlife Habitat Management, concerning specifically real estate and a donation contract number L3712, State Game Land number 168 in Northampton County. Virginia R. Romanishan is offering to take 2 parcels of land totaling 4 or more or less acres located in Moore Township, Northampton County, adjoining and near State Game Land number 168, as shown on Exhibit Red 1 on page 20 of your agenda. Tract 1 is 3 more or less acres and adjoins State Game Land number 168. Tract 2 is 1 more or less acre and is located south of State Game Land number 168. Both tracts are forested with mixed hardwoods and lie on the south slope of Blue Mountain.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I get a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries.
And the next item concerns an exchange, contract number L3713, State Game Land number 168, Monroe, Northampton, and Carbon counties. The United States of America, acting through the Department of the Interior National Park Service, NPS, and the Commission, the PGC, are proposing to exchange equal value 2.25 acre tracts located approximately 1 mile from one another, summit of Blue Mountain. The 2.25 acre tract to be conveyed from the NPS to the PGC is located entirely within Eldred Township, Monroe County, does not contain any portion of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, and contains a 100-foot wide overhead electric transmission line right-of-way, as shown on Exhibit Red 2 on page 22 of your agenda. The 2.25 acre tract to be conveyed from the PGC to the NPS is located within Lower Tawa Township, Carbon County, and Moore Township, Northampton County, and contains approximately 421 linear feet of the Appalachian Trail which bisects the tract. This is also shown on Exhibit Red 2 on page 22 of your agenda. The primary purpose of the exchange is to encourage responsible future energy corridor development, namely natural gas and petroleum pipelines, across Blue Mountain and State Game Land number 168 by allowing for pipeline or utility co-location within, immediately adjacent to the existing cleared right-of-way. By siting future energy infrastructure in this area, the Commission can avoid additional forest fragmentation from new corridor development that would otherwise be necessary for projects that must cross Blue Mountain and State Game Land number 168. Co-location within the existing corridor will also minimize future adverse impacts to the Appalachian Trail, which is located on or near the summit throughout this area. Additional benefits to the PGC and sportsmen in this exchange include the establishment of the sole connection between the northern and southern tracts of the State Game Land number 168 on this 3-mile section of the summit, along with the reduction of potential conflicts between Appalachian Trail users and sportsmen through a decrease in length of the Appalachian Trail on State Game Land number 168. With the exception of the overhead existing electric transmission right-of-way, both tracts consist of typical dry oak mixed hardwood forest, ranging in age from approximately 80 to 125 years.
Can I get a motion on the,
Motion.
Second.
any questions or comments?
I have one.
Mr. Daly?
As I look at this map and I see the 2.25 acres that the Park Service is to convey to the Game Commission, it looks like it's maybe shown west of where it should be, only because the overhead power line is shown on the map, and I thought that we were going to be on the right-of-way of that power line. Is that correct?
Yes, some of the mapping sometimes always isn't accurate as far as through USGS. But yes, the transmission line that's currently there
So
is,
we'd be centered underneath the transmission line?
it's not completely centered, no, it's off to the one side.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. That motion carries.
The next item concerns oil, gas, and minerals and a bituminous surface coal mining agreement for tract 276A-17, West Burrell Township, Indiana County. Mining, Inc. of Butler, Pennsylvania is developing a coal surface mining project on private land situated immediately between State Game Lands number 153 and 276, and proposes to extend the operation onto a portion of State Game Land number 276 located in Burrell Township, Indiana County, as shown on Exhibit OGM-1 on page 24 of your agenda. Americoal has requested an agreement for approximately 13 acres to mine and remove approximately 4.4 acres of mining coal and remaining 8.3 acres as support area. There is an estimated 15,840 tons of recoverable Lower Kittanning coal within the 4.4 acres of game land. The Commission owns the surface support rights, and the coal. The Commission was approached by the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, Cambria District Mining Office, and was encouraged to allow the off-site mining operation to extend onto the game land for the complete removal of the Lower Kittanning crop coal in order to eliminate the potential for future down-gradient mine discharges on game lands. If the section of Lower Kittanning crop coal were to remain in place on the game lands, then DEP would require Americoal to clay seal the low wall in the mining area to a depth above the exposed Lower Kittanning coal seam. A clay seal would be required because the Lower Kittanning coal exhibits high sulfur and its structure dips toward the northwest, in other words, towards State Game Land number 276. A clay seal would reduce, but not eliminate, the potential for down-gradient discharges if the section of coal were left in place on the game land. Removal of the Lower Kittanning coal seam in its entirety essentially eliminates the potential for degraded post-mining discharges. The terms are a 5-year agreement and a royalty rate of 12% of the FOB pit price for all coal mined and sold from the premises, or $3 per ton, whichever the greater. All coal royalty payments will be deposited in the game fund. Mining will be regulated by the Commonwealth's mining regulations and the Commission's standard surface coal mining agreement.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries.
The next item concerns non-surface use oil and gas cooperative agreement, tract 36A17, Franklin and Monroe Townships, Bradford County. Chief Oil and Gas LLC of Dallas, Texas, Chief, has submitted a sole source lease proposal nomination to the Commission, requesting development of the Commission's oil and gas rights under a portion of State Game Land number 36, non-surface use development. The proposed tract, containing approximately 498.95 more or less acres, is located in Franklin and Monroe Townships, Bradford County, as shown on Exhibit OGM-2 on page 26 of your agenda. Chief has a strong, privately owned oil gas lease position surrounding this portion of State Game Land number 36. They have initiated unconventional well drilling and development in the vicinity of the proposed tract, and also have the ability to unitize and develop the oil and gas reserves under the proposed tract by horizontal drilling with no surface use or disturbance. Oil, gas, and mineral staff negotiated the proposed terms of the agreement with Chief in an effort to prudently develop the Commission's oil or gas reserves and simultaneously protect the wildlife resources and recreational use of State Game Land number 36. The terms of the agreement are a 5-year paid-up non-surface use oil and gas agreement, a $2,350 per net oil and gas acre bonus payment, 1% royalty for all oil or gas or other liquids or condensates produced and sold from the proposed tract. The bonus payment of approximately $1,172,532 may be deposited into either the game fund or an interest-bearing escrow account to be used for the future purchase of wildlife habitats, lands, or other uses incidental to hunting, fur taking, and wildlife resource management. Future rentals and royalties owed the Commission shall be deposited into the game fund. Oil and gas development regulated by the Commonwealth's oil and gas regulations and the Commission's standard non-surface use oil and gas cooperative agreement.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carried.
There's a supplement to the agenda which comes up regarding oil, gas, and minerals, and it relates to a restricted surface use oil and gas cooperative agreement option / land exchange. This is track 133A-17, state game land number 133 in Lycoming County. Seneca Resources of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania requested the commission offer its oil and gas for a 2,151 acre portion, state game land number 133 for oil and gas development. The proposed tract, containing approximately 2,151 acres, is located in Gamble, Lewis, and Cascade Townships, Lycoming County, as shown on Exhibit OGM-3 attached to the item. Seneca maintains a strong oil-gas lease position surrounding state game land number 133 and has initiated unconventional well drilling and development in the vicinity of tract. Seneca has the ability to unitize and develop the Commission's oil and gas reserve under the proposed tract by horizontal drilling with no surface use or disturbance. Oil, gas, and mineral staff has negotiated the proposed terms with Seneca in an effort to prudently develop the Commission's oil or gas reserve and simultaneously protect the wildlife resources and recreational uses of state game land number 133. In exchange for the option agreement, Seneca will immediately transfer an 80-acre tract of land within state game land number 62, located in Hamlin Township, McKean County, to the Commission, Exhibit OGM-4. Seneca will have a 5-year period to execute a non-surface use oil and gas development agreement. The terms of the non-surface use agreement, if executed, are a $3,200 per net oil and gas acre bonus payment and 18% royalty for all oil, gas, and other liquids or condensates produced and sold from the proposed tract. The bonus payment of approximately $883,200 may be deposited into either the game fund or an interest-bearing escrow account to be used for the future purposes of wildlife habitats, lands, or other uses incidental to hunting, fur taking, and wildlife resource management. Future rentals and royalties owed the Commission shall be deposited into the game fund. Oil and gas development will be regulated by the Commonwealth's oil and gas regulations and the Commission's standard restricted surface use oil and gas cooperative agreement.
Motion to accept.
Can I get a second? I'll second. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Daly?
I just think it's great that the way this is written, that right away it's 80 acres, which is an indenture to this state game land. So if you look at that, that's a nice fill-in, and they have, what, up to 5 years that they could execute this agreement. Very good. Nice work.
So could we get a little explanation of how this is going to work out so that people understand we're not getting the funds up front?
Excuse me. The option, as Commissioner did, that interior comes immediately to the Game Commission. Once that transfer takes place, Seneca has up to 5 years to enter into a lease agreement with the Game Commission. So they have that 5-year time period, to work out all the details that they need to do on their end. But you can see the terms of the lease that's established here in the agenda item.
Motion carried.
Our next working group meeting date, I was looking on my calendar and talking to Brian, looks like will be tentatively August 28th.
Now you're checking my calendar. It's 28.
You want to hold? The next commission meeting dates are September 25th and 26th, and we will be holding that at Middle Creek in the southeast region. So that everyone understands that. We will make sure that there's a press release that does let everybody know. The resolution that we would like to present, Brad, could you read the resolution for us?
Yes. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Game Commission, resolution of the Board of Commissioners. Whereas the Conservation Officers of Pennsylvania Association, COPA, is a 501c3 charitable organization comprised of active and retired conservation officers and deputy conservation officers from both the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, PFBC, and the Pennsylvania Commission, PGC, as well as other conservation-minded associate members. And whereas certain PGC retirees and COPA have undertaken the task of fundraising for and building a facility to help preserve the history of this Commonwealth's outdoor heritage. And whereas the PGC retirees and COPA have designated this project as the Pennsylvania Conservation Heritage Museum. And whereas the PGC has identified a site on State Game Land 46 in Lancaster that is available for and compatible with this project. And whereas the Pennsylvania Conservation Heritage Museum has been designed to be added onto the existing visitor center at the Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area, which hosts roughly 100,000 visitors each year, 6,500 of whom attend the center's educational programs and 5,000 of whom are school groups. And whereas the new museum wing of the visitor center will house items documenting and preserving our state conservation heritage. And whereas the architectural plans for the Pennsylvania Conservation Heritage Museum have been completed, and electrical, water, and sewer utility systems already exist on site at the Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area Visitor Center. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the PGC does hereby support and approve this project, understanding that the PGC does not currently have the means to contribute to this endeavor financially. Given under the hand and seal of the Commissioners of the Pennsylvania Game Commission on this 28th day, the date 26th day of June 2017.
Can I get a motion on the resolution?
So move.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, call the vote.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Carries.
There will be no, it doesn't look like there's going to be any executive session after this. The next meeting date is September, the next working group meeting is August 28th, but the next working group meeting, the next commission meeting is in Middle Creek. We've already gone over that. At that time, I will adjourn the meeting. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Yeah, that date threw me off. Everything else is good, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, I noticed it too.
Probably one person was cold, maybe Denise.
Oh my God. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah, I was burning up with his jacket on.
I know. The one nice thing, because I have no windows or anything, it's always cold.
Well, that's good.
I'm
What's always
so
dark
happy.
about it? Do you always think about that?
Yes.
Do you?
I have, my mother had macular degeneration. I have a lot of trouble with light. These glasses are transitions. I always have to get dark. And the eye doctor, probably maybe 10 years ago, said, oh my God, you have the most reactive people I've ever seen. And I told about my mother and he goes, you probably should just wear sunglasses. And I always turn off lights. I stay in the dark. It's just something I don't like that sun. It makes my head hurt.
Well, I had cataracts, so these are transitions too, but the problem is like in a car, because the windows, they don't darken up. Right. So I still gotta go out and buy some kind of sunglasses.
Well, and I had to work on these a lot. I mean, because I got them years ago, and I remember hunting. And it was a snowy day, and I'm out hunting, and my glasses got so dark.
Yeah.
Between the cold and the light.
Reflecting off the sun.
I hadn't loaded the gun, took off my glasses, and walked out. I was like, I can't see it. It's broad daylight. I'm totally black. And I went back to the eye doctor, and so now I always get to say, make it as light as you can, but make them change.
Okay.
And so they do. I don't know.
We're gonna have a press